Hi, I'm Dustin MacFarlane. I own California Probate and Trust. We are an estate planning and probate law firm, or I guess I should say a probate and an estate planning law firm. In Fair Oaks and Granite Bay are our two main locations. If you'd like to get a hold of me, if you have any questions, you can reach me at 866-674-1130. Again, 866-674-1130. You're listening to Death and Taxes. I tried to say it before and got fumbled. So we talk about death and taxes, and that's all that I do at work. So I'm in estate planning, and I'm a probate lawyer. My office is dedicated to nothing but estate planning and probate. All of the attorneys are certified specialists, and we are here. This is our mission in life. This is all that we do, and dealing with death and taxes, and it really brings in a lot of family dynamics. So really, it's about dealing with family. That's the biggest issue. And then we have to deal with taxes, or we have to deal with people passing away, and that just kind of adds complexity to family, which I don't know if your family's like my family, but generally, family is complex. So we're here to help smooth out the process. But today, I specifically want to talk about blended families, because here's where most of the stress and angst that we see in our clients come. And so there's a couple of really common scenarios. The most common that I see is a husband and wife have either been widowed or they've divorced, and they find themselves single, and they get married to each other, and they both have children from previous marriages or relationships. And the kids were never really raised together. And even if they were, they really, stepmom, stepdad, it's generally not such a tight bond like a biological parent. And blended families always have the number one goal, and I'm just going to kind of be, and I'll just say husbands and wives, but if a husband passes away and he wants to take care of his wife, but he also wants to take care of his children. And if you walk through that, the more money that goes to his wife, the less money that goes to the kids. And the more money that goes to the kids, the less money that goes to the wife if he were to pass first. And it's the same thing with the wife. If she dies first and she wants to take care of her children and take care of her husband. And so there's this natural conflict, and it's difficult to overcome that. And most surviving spouses, they don't want to be beholden to the children of their deceased spouse. They want to be able to live their life and use their money and not have to worry that those kids are going to come back and make a claim or cause trouble or try to get their inheritance before the second spouse passes away. And it's just this natural thing. And everyone has the same concern. That is not true. I have worked with one family out of thousands and thousands of clients, one blended family where all the kids, his kids and her kids, got along, and not just got along, were best friends. It was more than peace and harmony. They vacationed together. They had dinners multiple times a week. They were together in the holidays. It is so rare. It's what we want. It's what we dream for. It's what parents envision and think that it's definitely possible. And with one exception, so I can't say never because I've seen it one time. With one exception, it just doesn't happen. I mean, I don't have I've met my step siblings. My parents divorced. They both got remarried. All of the spouses have children from previous marriages. I'm aware of, and I guess I would be cordial if I saw someone at an event or a family event or a funeral, or even if they came to a holiday party or something. But I don't have a relationship with them. I'm not calling them, and definitely if someone died and I was standing to inherit money, I would be concerned. I would be concerned that a spouse is going to take money that I might inherit, or that, and I know the other spouse is concerned too, that I might take money that they might inherit. And it's just something that we got to get over it, and we have to have a plan for it. And we have to have a good plan that works for everyone. And just recently we were working with somebody, and this was the exact problem. He came to me and he said, Dustin, if I die, he's like, I'm 15 years older than my wife. She has kids and I have kids, but if I die, I want my kids to get everything. And he's been married for a long time, like 20 years. But I want my kids, he said, I want my wife will get my income and she can live in the house. It's paid for. She can live in the house if I die first. But I want my kids to get all my money, which is 7 figures, like it was significant, get all my money. And I want my kids to get the house when she dies. So she doesn't even necessarily get the house. She gets to live in the house for free. But when she dies, the house goes back to his children. And so he said, what do I do? How do I solve this problem? Because it's not like he didn't have enough money to divide up, but he wanted his children. His number one loyalty was to his children. And that's honestly, it's pretty common. Even though we love our spouses and we want to take care of our spouses, our loyalty seems to really naturally be to our kids. And so he ended up getting a life insurance policy, and talk about someone who didn't need it. He had good income. I mean, not that he didn't need it, but he needed more cash in his estate is what he needed. So he had good income. He had enough. He had money, like in savings and retirement accounts, and he had paid for real estate. He felt that his kids deserved his money that he earned, primarily in the early part of his career when he was married to their mother, and that he's like, that's their money. So the life insurance policy, it was a great little solution. And again, not that he didn't need it, or not that he wanted to generate a little bit more money. So the life insurance policy will pay to his wife, and all the money is going to pay to his kids. And the life insurance policy is enough that she can buy the house from the kids, or she'll now have options. And being creative and finding a solution that meets families' needs only comes with time with the family, with getting to know the family and getting them to building a relationship of trust so that families open up, that they talk about these things, and that they're willing to entertain solutions to try to meet their needs. And that's really important. Blended families, I think if you're married, or worse, if you're not married, but you're living together, but you both have children from previous relationships, you've got to get a plan in place. It makes it so much easier to know you've taken care of your children, or even if you don't like them, like, okay, they're disinherited, they're not going to bother my wife is going to be okay. Like whatever your plan is, we've got to there's a solution that we can find. We sit down, we go through what you want and come up with something that we work together. My name is Dustin MacFarlane. My number is 866-674-1130. Give me a call. Let's talk about your blended family and come up with a solution for you. Hi, I'm Dustin MacFarlane. Thanks for tuning in. My phone number is 866-674-1130. I own California Probate and Trust. We are an estate planning and probate law firm. I'm a certified specialist, and you are listening to Death and Taxes. And I want to continue this theme of blended families. Blended families can be difficult. A lot of us have, I'm a product of a blended family. I guess my parents have been married multiple times, but my wife and I were coming up on 29 years. We've decided early on we're staying together out of spite. Just her parents got divorced and remarried. My parents got divorced and remarried. We told ourselves we are not doing multiple Christmases. We do one Christmas dinner. That's it, because we just didn't want that for our kids. We hated it growing up. But blended families create problems. I know I'm in a blended family. My parents have multiple marriages. My wife's parents have multiple marriages. All of our kids' friends are divorced and remarried, and all we see are problems with step-parents and that tension, that tenuous relationship that parents have with stepchildren. And it doesn't generally get better over time. It gets worse. having the right plan makes sure that your kids and your spouse are taken care of the way you intend. There's a lot of unintended consequences that people just don't realize. So recently, I was sitting down with a couple, again, blended family. They got, they both got married young, had kids young. Then they got divorced, or one was a widow, but they were single for 20 or more years. And then they met and fell in love, and like happiest day ever, right? Like it's fantastic. But they both have children and they both have concerns. And they came and they said, Dustin, we want to mush everything together. I mean, mush isn't a legal technical word, but you get it, right? I want to take my assets and she wants to take her assets, and we want to make them together as community property. Because normally when you go into a marriage, what you bring into the marriage is your separate property. When what your spouse brings into the marriage is your spouse's separate property, and you have no ownership interest over the other spouse's share. So let's talk about some of the legal ramifications of that. First of all, if you don't do a will, at least a minimum of a will, and you die and you're married and you have property, your spouse automatically, and you have to go through a probate court, but automatically would inherit either 1/2 or 1/3, and it depends on your circumstance, of your estate. So even if you have 3 kids and you're like, you know what, when I die, my kids are getting that stuff, and your spouse, and you don't do a new will and you die, your spouse can come in and claim either 1/2 or 1/3 of your property and just take it away from your kids. So that may or may not be a good thing. The other thing that happens is if you put your spouse on the beneficiary named as a beneficiary, say of your IRA or your life insurance, and that goes, or you put them on the deed to the house, all of that goes to them. And generally it goes to the surviving spouse, and it becomes that surviving spouse's property. And if they live longer than you, they can change their trust, change their will, and completely disinherit your children. And most people don't realize that. Like, if you want something specific to happen, you need to engineer it. You need to be working with somebody who can engineer your plan. So this couple that came to me, they said, I want to mush everything together. Okay, that we can do, but let me tell you some of the side effects of that. Number one, there's no unringing the bell. And they said, okay, what does that mean? I said, it means if you get divorced. If you get divorced, you can't separate it without both of you agreeing. And generally, if you're in a war with your spouse and going through a divorce, you're not so apt to give half of a house or a bunch of money back to them. You're mad at them. So that almost never happens, right? So you got to know there's only one way on that. You commingle the assets, you mush them together, and there's no unmushing. That's really difficult. Number two, if you die first and that spouse inherits everything, because it becomes, I always kill husbands first, so it becomes hers, then the surviving spouse owns everything and can easily say, you know what? His kids were always pricks to me anyway. They never came around. They called me step monster behind my back. I'm just going to disinherit them, and they get nothing, and I'm giving everything to my kids. It happens all the time. It's super common. And so you could talk about it with your spouse, and you could promise and swear and trust each other. But I'll tell you what, when you're gone and that spouse gets the whisperings of, I'm just going to her kids or his kids, whatever, like we all do it. Your loyalties are almost always to your children. And you come up with reasons why your deceased spouse's kids should be excluded. It's really common. And so this couple, they go, okay, that's fine. We understand. If I die, my spouse owns it. And if she dies, I own it. And I said, and to the exclusion of your kids, you got to be okay with that. They could get nothing, zero. And the spouses both said, oh, we would never do that. I'm saying, okay, that's a nice promise. It's very sweet. You guys have only been married a year. I get it. But just to be clear, you don't have to. You own it. And they said, okay, that's fine. So then we put a plan together that we're going to bring everything together into one pot. So they'll be co-owners. that is okay. If that's, you've just got to know the consequences of that. And you've got to have a plan, because I know that you want to take care of your spouse. You share a life with him or her. You share money. You share stories. You share emotions. You share your life. If you're gone, I know that there's a part of you that wants to take care of your spouse. But you also have these children, and I'm just going to assume that you love your children, and that doesn't always happen, but that you love your children, and that you have a good relationship, and that you want to make sure that you leave a little bit of a legacy for them or for their grandkids, or to provide for college, or to help them get a house, or whatever you want to do. And so you have these conflicting plans or goals or values. And the only reason they're conflicting is because if your spouse gets it, your kids don't. And if your kids get it, your spouse doesn't. And so let's come up with a solution that meets your needs, so that your children are not hovering buzzards over your wife, waiting for her to die to pick the carcass clean so they can get their share. And so your spouse doesn't alienate your children because she got bugged that they didn't like her potato salad at the funeral. We have got to have a plan. We've got to engineer it and have these conversations. Your blended family is still your family, and there are good solutions. But we've got to know what the pitfalls are and come up with a way to solve those problems. Give me a call. Let's talk about your blended family and the solutions that could benefit your children and your spouse. My number is 866-674-1130, or go to my website, CPT.LAW, and the number again is 866-674-1130. I'm Dustin MacFarlane. Bye-bye. Hello, I'm Dustin MacFarlane, and you're listening to Death and Taxes. I own California Probate and Trust. I am an estate planning and probate attorney. I'm certified by the California State Bar, and I also have my California insurance license. And I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but I'm sure you could find it online. Today we're talking about death and taxes, and specifically the tax bomb that's inside your 401k. 401ks were invented by the government to force us to save. And I don't know, but anything created by the government and almost mandated, and in California it kind of is mandated now, kind of makes me a little bit leery. And I think it's really good that we're able to defer taxes, have our money grow tax deferred, and then we can have access to it when we retire or after age 59 and a half with no penalties. I think 401ks are phenomenal. And I think if you have an opportunity to put your money and a little bit of income into them, I think you really should. Even my kids have 401ks at 20. Can you imagine? I'm 52. I didn't really know, and not all the employers offered them when I was growing up. Can you imagine being 20 years old and dumping a couple $100 a month into a 401k to start out your life? It'd be such an advantage when you're, 60, 70 years old. You'd have a big pile of money that you've just kind of been, piecing in for all these years, the magic of compounding interest. Who knew? So the problem that a lot of people get into, though, and this is a really common concern. So the problem is they don't want the money. And you think, well, Dustin, how's it going to be possible? What do you mean they don't want the money? So, they've got income. And so this is a normal scenario. Like a gentleman I met with a couple weeks ago. He comes in, he's got a state pension, he's got a federal military pension, he has a paid-for house, he has 2 rental properties that throw off a couple $1,000s a month each in rent. He has almost no debt. And he has healthy income, and he's just kind of been a saver and a plodder his whole life, and he's been dumping money since he was young, as soon as he could, into a 401k. So again, he has a big 401k. It's 7 figures. He has passive income through rental properties, and he has government pensions that just will pay for as long as he's alive. And so he has a healthy, 6-figure tax or taxable income just through that. And now he's 75 and he says, Dustin, I don't want this money, because every time I pull money out, it raises my tax bill. Like half of it goes to the federal and state government. I don't want to just give it away to charity. And even it's too big. I can't give enough of it away I don't get a deduction. Like he goes, I don't want to just give it to the government. What do I do with it? How do I get this money? I want it to go to my family. Can I give it to my kids? That's always the number one thing. Can I just give it to my kids? So a 401k, or if you leave the employer, you roll it over into what's called an IRA. But all of these retirement accounts, they have the common theme of individual ownership and not transferable. So the only way to transfer the money is to pull the money out, pay the tax, and then you can give away whatever's left. Now, there are a lot of people that do Roth conversions, and I'm a fan of Roth conversions. I think that they can be a good thing. But just know this, you are pulling the money out, paying the tax, dumping what's left into a Roth IRA, and just pray to all that is holy that after-tax amount will grow in value to equal or exceed what you originally had in your IRA. So here's an example, and this is what he was dealing with. He said last year he pulled out $500,000 for a Roth conversion. $500,000, $500,000 he pulled out. And he paid $200,000 in tax, roughly, on that $500,000. He's left with $300,000. He then takes that $300,000 and puts it in an IRA that can grow tax-free now. I agree, that's phenomenal, right? But that tax-free growth, you're just going to pray, even at 5%, it's still going to take a decade or more to get back to where it was. And that's if there's no down years. That's if he doesn't need the money and spend it. That's if just like the stars are aligned. So there's this other really phenomenal option. When we were talking, he was super excited about this because instead of doing another Roth conversion, which again, driving him crazy that he, let's call it wasted $200,000 and sent it to the federal government. I don't know what else to call it besides waste. They waste the money. So he wasted $200,000. So instead, what we explained is he can take that $500,000 and he can buy a life insurance policy with it, tax-free. He doesn't have to take it out. He can buy the life insurance policy. It's essentially inside the IRA. And there's only a few guys who actually know how to do this. It's a really technical thing. I can explain it to you. I can introduce you to the life insurance guys who know how to do this. They can take that life insurance policy, or they can take that money tax-free, buy a life insurance policy with the full amount, not the after-tax amount, which lets you now use all of the money and not part of the money. And remember, he said to me, I don't want this money. He's got all this income. So he buys the life insurance policy. The life insurance policy is guaranteed from day one. It doesn't have a cash value, but it's guaranteed from day one to provide a death benefit to his kids that is double or triple the amount. So for $500,000, he was able to buy a life insurance policy that would give him nearly $1 million of death benefit to his kids, double the amount that he started with. Do you know how long he would the odds of him investing the after-tax $300,000 to grow it to $1 million? He's not young enough for that to even happen unless he, I don't know, strikes it rich or some whatever, gets lucky. Just gets dumb luck. So instead of him having to take that money and pay all this tax and then pray that the money grows, instead of doing that, we were able to find a solution where he could get the money off the table. He could buy a phenomenal death benefit that will go to his children. And the stress goes away because now he doesn't worry about, this ridiculous tax bill and, is this money going to grow? Am I ever going to get my money back? Like all of that goes away. Now he has a plan that is going to provide his children with an extra pile of money that they wouldn't have otherwise gotten. Tax-free, by the way. They get that money tax-free. And he's not angry every year at this ginormous tax bill from these required minimum distributions that he's got to pay that essentially just go to the federal government. If you're interested, if you would like to talk about how you can use your IRA to buy life insurance to provide a bigger benefit to your family and avoid the tax, reach out to me. Let's talk about your situation. My number is 866-674-1130. I look forward to talking to you soon.